The Bronx, a borough teeming with life, stories, and shadows. In this vibrant tapestry, Maria and Elena Lopez were threads of pure light. Their lives revolved around family, faith, and school. They were known for their kindness, their laughter echoing in the hallways of their apartment building. Maria, the elder at 12, possessed a quiet wisdom. 10-year-old Elena, a firecracker of energy, brought joy to everyone she met. Every Sunday they sat in the front pew, their voices joining in hymns, their eyes reflecting the stained glass saints. They were, by all accounts, good girls, innocent, unsuspecting. The Lopez family, though modest in means, was rich in love. Their small apartment buzzed with the comforting rhythm of life, the sizzle of Mama's cooking, the murmur of the radio, the girls' hushed whispers before sleep. They were a beacon of normalcy in a world often teetering on the edge of chaos. But this normalcy, this comforting rhythm was about to be shattered.
Mama, make them stop, please. I can't take it anymore.
Elena's voice, usually high and sweet, was now a raspy whisper filled with an unnatural fear. Her once bright and cheerful demeanor had been replaced by a haunting presence that seemed to age her beyond her years. She cowered in the corner, her tiny body trembling, her eyes darting around the room as if pursued by invisible demons. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every creak of the floorboards a harbinger of doom. Maria, her face contorted in a silent scream, repeatedly banged her head against the wall, a sickening thud echoing through the small apartment. Her actions were desperate, as if trying to escape an invisible tormentor that only she could see. Their parents, devout Catholics, were beside themselves. They had always believed in the power of prayer and faith, but now they found themselves questioning everything they held dear. They tried everything they knew: prayer, holy water, even a visit from the parish priest. The priest had come with his own set of rituals and blessings, but even his presence seemed to falter in the face of the overwhelming darkness. But nothing worked. The girls only grew worse. Their condition deteriorated with each passing day, their once vibrant spirits now shadows of their former selves. They spoke in languages they didn't know, their words dripping with malice and dread. These were not the innocent voices of children, but something far more sinister. Their once melodic laughter was now a chilling cackle, a sound that sent shivers down their mother's spine. It was as if the very essence of joy had been twisted into something grotesque.
Dios mío, what have we done? How can we save them?
Their mother cried, clutching a rosary, her face etched with worry. She prayed fervently, her fingers moving rapidly over the beads, seeking solace in her faith. Her husband, a man who prided himself on his strength, could only watch in helpless horror as his little girls were twisted and tortured by an unseen force. His heart ached with a pain he could not describe, a helplessness that gnawed at his very soul. They were prisoners in their own bodies, tormented by something beyond human comprehension. Their eyes, once filled with innocence, now held a haunted look that spoke of unspeakable horrors. The once peaceful apartment became a battleground, the air thick with fear and the stench of sulfur. Every corner seemed to hide a lurking menace, every shadow a potential threat. The girls' behavior grew more erratic and disturbing. They would lash out without warning, their actions unpredictable and violent. They spoke of shadows that whispered their names, of unseen hands that pushed and prodded them, of voices that promised power in exchange for their souls. These were not the fantasies of children, but the terrifying reality they lived in. Their once bright eyes, now vacant and cold, reflected an evil that chilled the very marrow. It was as if their souls had been replaced by something dark and malevolent. The family was desperate, their faith shaken to its core. They had always believed in the power of good, but now they were confronted with a darkness that seemed insurmountable. They were facing something beyond their understanding, a darkness that threatened to consume their beloved daughters. The once warm and loving home had become a place of fear and despair, a battleground for their very souls. Desperate times call for desperate measures. When all hope seems lost, people often turn to the unthinkable, seeking solace in the unknown. Someone whispered about Senora Isabella, a woman who practiced Santeria, a blend of Catholicism and African traditions. Her name was spoken in hushed tones, a beacon of hope for those in dire need. She owned a botanica, a shop filled with herbs, statues, and charms, a place where the veil between the spiritual and physical world seemed thin. The air was thick with mystery, and every corner held secrets waiting to be unveiled. It was a gamble going against their strict Catholic upbringing, but the Lopez family was out of options. Their faith had always been their guiding light, but now they found themselves in the shadows, searching for any glimmer of hope. They were clinging to hope no matter how fragile. The weight of their desperation was palpable, and they were willing to grasp at any straw no matter how thin. The Botanica was tucked away on a side street, its storefront shrouded in shadows. It was a place that seemed to exist outside of time, a sanctuary for those seeking the extraordinary. The air inside was thick with the scent of incense and herbs, a strange mixture of comforting and unsettling. It was a sensory overload, a blend of the familiar and the unknown. Senora Isabella, a woman with eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom, listened intently as the family recounted their horrific ordeal. Her presence was both calming and intimidating, a paradox that left the family in awe. Her face, etched with the lines of countless encounters with the supernatural, remained impassive, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. She had seen many things, but this was different.
Something dark has taken root in your daughters. They have attracted a malevolent force, something ancient and hungry. This is not a simple haunting. It is a possession of the darkest kind.
Her words hung heavy in the air, confirming their worst fears. The room seemed to close in around them, the weight of the revelation pressing down on their souls. The family, huddled together, listened with a mixture of terror and morbid fascination. They had come seeking answers, but the truth was more horrifying than they had imagined.
They have made a pact, a deal with entities they cannot comprehend. This is not a game. It is a binding contract with forces beyond our understanding.
A pact? But how? They are just children. How could they have known what they were doing?
Senora Isabella, her eyes filled with a mixture of pity and resolve, pointed to a worn book clutched tightly in Maria's hand. It was a book that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It was bound in what looked like human skin, its pages filled with strange symbols and incantations. The book was an artifact of dark power, a relic from a time when magic and reality were intertwined.
This is no ordinary book. This holds the key to their salvation, or their damnation. It is a double-edged sword, a tool that can either save them or doom them forever.
The air crackled with tension as Senora Isabella prepared for the exorcism. Her hands moved with practiced precision, arranging the sacred items with a calm that belied the storm brewing within her. Candles flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls, their light dancing in a macabre ballet that seemed to mock the gravity of the situation. The scent of frankincense and myrrh filled the air, a feeble attempt to mask the stench of sulfur that now clung to the girls. The smoke curled and twisted, mingling with the oppressive atmosphere. Maria and Elena, strapped to chairs, thrashed and screamed, their voices inhuman, their eyes burning with an infernal light, their bodies convulsed violently, as if trying to break free from invisible chains. Their parents, huddled together, prayed with a fervency they had never known before. Tears streamed down their faces, their whispered prayers a desperate plea for divine intervention. This was a battle for their daughters' souls, a desperate struggle against an unseen enemy. The room was thick with fear, every breath a laborious effort.
Leave these girls be.
Senora Isabella commanded, her voice echoing with surprising strength. Her resolve was unshakable, her faith a beacon in the encroaching darkness. She brandished a crucifix, its silver glinting in the candlelight. The symbol of her faith shone brightly, a stark contrast to the surrounding gloom. The response was immediate and terrifying. The room seemed to vibrate with a malevolent energy, the very air crackling with unseen forces. The girls contorted, bones snapping under the strain of an unnatural force. Their bodies twisted in ways that defied human anatomy, a grotesque display of the entity's power. Their screams intensified, morphing into guttural growls and hisses. The sound was a chilling reminder of the darkness that had taken hold of them. The entities were resisting, their power palpable in the suffocating air. It was a battle of wills, a clash between light and darkness. The room grew colder, the flickering candlelight revealing fleeting glimpses of grotesque figures in the shadows. The temperature drop was a physical manifestation of the evil presence. The smell of sulfur intensified, choking, suffocating. It was as if the very essence of hell had seeped into the room, making it hard to breathe. This was not just a spiritual battle, it was a visceral, terrifying experience that threatened to unravel their sanity. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. Senora Isabella, her face beaded with sweat, continued to chant, her voice a weapon against the darkness. Each word was a strike against the malevolent forces. The crucifix trembled in her hand, its silver glowing with an ethereal light. It was as if the object itself was imbued with divine power, a conduit for the holy.
We are Legion, these girls are ours. We have promised them power, glory.
A voice boomed from Maria's mouth, the sound ancient, filled with malice. It was a voice that carried the weight of countless tormented souls.
They are ours to command.
Elena's head twisted almost completely around, her eyes burning with an unholy fire. The sight was both horrifying and heartbreaking.
They are ours to command.
She shrieked, her voice a grotesque parody of her former innocence. The sound echoed through the room, a haunting reminder of what was at stake. The entities, their voices dripping with venomous hatred, taunted Senora Isabella, their words a chilling testament to the power they wielded. Their presence was a constant, oppressive force. The room pulsed with their malevolence, the air thick with the stench of sulfur and fear. It was a suffocating atmosphere, heavy with dread. The battle for the Lopez sisters' souls had begun in earnest. Every second was a test of faith, a struggle against the encroaching darkness that sought to consume them.